There's a version of you that exists right now today that most people will never meet. That version is sharper, stronger, more focused. That version doesn't make excuses. That version shows up with confidence and gets things done. And here's the interesting part. That version isn't some fantasy. It's not 5 years away or waiting for the right circumstances. It's 30 days away, maybe less. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to become that person? I spent years of my life broke, confused, and going nowhere. I was 25 years old with pennies in my pocket and promises I couldn't keep. My bank account was embarrassing, my confidence was shot, and every morning I woke up feeling like I was trapped in a life I didn't design. And the worst part, I kept blaming everything and everyone else. The economy, my job, my circumstances. I had a million excuses and zero results. Then one day someone asked me a question that changed everything. Mr. Rohn, if you're not happy with your results, when are you going to change what's producing them? That question hit me like a freight train. Because the truth was, I was running on autopilot. My thinking was borrowed from people who weren't going anywhere. My feelings were reactions instead of choices. And the way I showed up in the world, it was a reflection of someone who didn't believe he deserved better. I was operating on outdated software, and I wondered why my life kept crashing. Here's what I learned that changed everything. Your life is nothing more than a printout of your internal programming. What you think, what you feel, and how you show up, these three things determine everything. Your income, your relationships, your health, your happiness, everything. And if you want different results, you've got to upgrade the system. Not next year, not when things get better, right now. The beautiful thing about 30 days is that it's long enough to create real change, but short enough that you can stay focused. Scientists tell us it takes about 3 weeks to start forming a new habit, and by 30 days, you're beginning to rewire your brain. But here's what most people miss. You're not just trying to add something new. You're replacing something old. You're uninstalling the virus of mediocre thinking and installing a better operating system. Think about it this way. If you plant a garden, what happens if you only plant the good seeds but don't pull the weeds? The weeds choke out everything else. Most people try to add positive thinking on top of negative patterns. They try to feel grateful while still complaining. They try to show up differently while still hanging around the same people who keep them small. That doesn't work. Real transformation requires pulling some weeds. I'm talking about 3 specific areas: the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you show up. These aren't separate issues. They're connected. Your thinking creates your feelings. Your feelings drive your actions. Your actions determine your results. And your results reinforce your thinking. It's a loop. And for most people, it's a downward loop. But it doesn't have to be. When I finally got serious about changing my life, I had to face some uncomfortable truths. My thinking was lazy. I was accepting ideas from people who weren't successful and wondering why I wasn't succeeding. I was reading the wrong books, watching the wrong shows, and having the wrong conversations. My mind was like a garden where I'd let anyone throw any kind of seed, and then I wondered why I had such a lousy harvest. Your mind is your most valuable asset, and most people treat it like a public dumping ground. They let the news pour negativity into it every morning. They let complainers and critics rent space in it all day. They fill it with entertainment that doesn't educate and information that doesn't elevate. And then they wonder why they can't think clearly, why they can't solve problems, why they can't see opportunities that are right in front of them. The feelings part is just as critical. I used to think feelings just happened to me, like weather. I'd wake up feeling bad and think, well, that's just how I feel today. But that's not true. Feelings come from focus. If you focus on what's wrong, you'll feel terrible. If you focus on what you're grateful for, you'll feel different. If you focus on your fears, you'll feel anxious. If you focus on your goals, you'll feel motivated. Your feelings aren't random. They're a result of where you put your attention. And then there's how you show up. This is where the rubber meets the road. Because nobody cares about your good intentions. Nobody pays you for your potential. The world responds to what you actually do, how you actually appear, the energy you actually bring. I've watched people with average talent go far because they showed up with excellence, and I've watched people with incredible talent go nowhere because they showed up with excuses. When I say show up, I'm talking about everything. How you dress, how you speak, whether you're on time, whether you're prepared, the effort you bring, the attitude you carry. It's all part of it. And here's the hard truth. The way you show up right now is a perfect reflection of what you think you're worth. If you're showing up sloppy, late, unprepared, and half-hearted, that's not because of your circumstances. That's because of your standards. Your current results are not accidents. They're not bad luck. They're not someone else's fault. They're the direct, predictable outcome of your current patterns. And most people don't want to hear that because it means they have to take responsibility. It's easier to blame the economy, the boss, the government, the weather. But blaming is for people who want to stay stuck. Responsibility is for people who want to get free. So here's where we are. If you want the next 30 days to be different from the last 30 days, you've got to face what you've been avoiding. You've got to look at your thinking and ask yourself, is this the thinking of someone who's going where I want to go? You've got to examine your feelings and ask, am I in control of these or are they in control of me? And you've got to evaluate how you're showing up and ask, would I hire me? Would I invest in me? Would I bet on me? Because here's the thing, the market is betting on you every single day. Life is betting on you. And right now, based on your current patterns, it's giving you exactly what you've earned. Not what you need, not what you want, what you've earned. And if you don't like what you're getting, it's time to become someone who deserves more. The next 30 days is your opportunity to do exactly that. Now that we've established where you are, it's time to talk about the work. And I'm going to be straight with you, this isn't the easy part. This is where most people quit. They get excited about the idea of change, but when it comes time to actually do the work, day after day, they fold. They go back to their old patterns because old patterns are comfortable even when they're killing us. But if you're still with me, if you're serious about these next 30 days, then we need to talk about how you're going to rebuild your mental architecture from the ground up. It starts with your mornings. I don't care how successful you become. I don't care how much money you make. The way you start your day will determine the quality of that day. For years, I started my mornings in chaos. I'd wake up late, rush around, skip breakfast, and head out the door already stressed and behind. Then I'd wonder why my whole day felt like I was playing catch-up. That's like starting a race by shooting yourself in the foot. Here's what I do now. And here's what I recommend you do for the next 30 days, without exception. Wake up an hour earlier than you think you need to. I know you're already tired, but that's exactly why you need to do this. That extra hour isn't for sleeping. It's for building yourself. Spend the first 30 minutes reading something that improves your mind. Not social media, not messages. A book, something that teaches you, challenges you, makes you think differently. I used to read the same personal development books over and over because each time I read them, I was a different person, so I got something different out of them. The next 30 minutes, write. Get yourself a journal and write down your thoughts, your goals, what you're grateful for, what you learned yesterday, what you're committed to today. This isn't diary writing where you complain about your problems. This is architect writing where you design your life on paper before you live it. I've kept journals for decades, and when I look back at them, I can see exactly when my thinking shifted and exactly when my results followed. There was a woman who came to one of my seminars years ago. She was struggling financially, emotionally exhausted, and couldn't figure out why nothing was working. I asked her what she did first thing in the morning. She said she grabbed her phone, checked her messages, scrolled through social media, watched the news, and by the time she got out of bed, she was already anxious and overwhelmed. I told her, you're feeding your mind poison for breakfast and wondering why you feel sick all day. She took the challenge. 30 days. New morning routine. No phone for the first hour. Reading and writing instead. 3 months later, she wrote me a letter. She said her income had doubled, her relationships had improved, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was in control of her life instead of life controlling her. Same person, same circumstances at the start, different inputs, different outputs. But mornings are just the beginning. The next thing you've got to get serious about is who you're spending time with. This is going to be uncomfortable, but it has to be said. Your associations are either lifting you up or dragging you down. There's no neutral. If you're spending time with people who complain, gossip, make excuses, and settle for less, you're going to start thinking like them. You can't help it. It's called social contagion, and it's more powerful than most people realize. I'm not saying you need to be rude or cut people off, but you do need to be selective. You need to guard your mind like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Spend less time with the energy vampires and more time with people who are going somewhere. Find somebody who's doing better than you and learn from them. Find somebody who thinks bigger than you and let it stretch your thinking. Find somebody who's disciplined and let their habits rub off on you. And if you can't find those people in person, find them in books. One of the greatest gifts of my life has been the ability to spend time with the greatest minds in history through reading. I can have breakfast with Aristotle, lunch with Benjamin Franklin, and dinner with Earl Nightingale. You think your broke buddy who complains about his job is going to give you better advice than those men? Get serious about who's teaching you. Now, here's where it gets practical. For the next 30 days, I want you to audit everything going into your mind. Every conversation, every show, every song, every social media post. Ask yourself, is this making me better or worse? Is this building me up or tearing me down? Is this moving me forward or holding me back? And if it's not serving your growth, cut it out. Be ruthless about this. Most people think their thoughts are random, but they're not. Your thoughts are a direct result of what you've been feeding your mind. If you've been feeding it garbage, you're going to think garbage thoughts. If you've been feeding it negativity, you're going to have negative thoughts. But if you start feeding it wisdom, inspiration, and truth, your thinking will change. It has to. That's how it works. There's another piece to this that people miss. You've got to learn how to think in questions instead of statements. When something goes wrong, most people make statements. I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm not smart enough. Those statements close doors. But what if you ask questions instead? How can I do this? What would I need to learn? Who could help me figure this out? Questions open doors. Questions activate your problem-solving mind. Questions turn obstacles into challenges instead of dead ends. I learned this from my mentor, Mr. Schoaf. Whenever I'd come to him with a problem, he wouldn't give me the answer. He'd ask me a question that made me think differently. Mr. Rohn, he'd say, what would someone who's already successful do in this situation? That one question changed everything because it forced me to step outside my limited thinking and consider possibilities I hadn't seen before. The feelings piece is where most people get stuck. They think feelings are something that happened to them, but feelings are something that happen from them. Your feelings come from your focus. If you focus on what you don't have, you'll feel deprived. If you focus on what you're grateful for, you'll feel abundant. If you focus on what scares you, you'll feel anxious. If you focus on what excites you, you'll feel energized. Your feelings are feedback, not fact. I used to wake up feeling terrible and think that meant I had to have a terrible day. Then I realized I could change how I felt by changing what I focused on. I'd ask myself better questions. What's good about today? What am I excited about? What can I learn? Who can I help? Within minutes, my feelings would shift, not because circumstances changed, but because my focus changed. Here's the truth about feelings that nobody wants to hear. You're more in control than you think. I'm not saying you can control every emotion. I'm saying you can influence them significantly by managing your focus and your physiology. When you feel down, change your posture. Stand up straight. Move your body. Breathe deeply. You'll be amazed how much your physical state affects your emotional state. For these 30 days, I want you to practice emotional honesty. That means acknowledging how you feel without being controlled by it. You can feel scared and still take action. You can feel uncertain and still move forward. You can feel tired and still do what needs to be done. Your feelings don't have to dictate your behavior. In fact, the most successful people I know do what needs to be done, regardless of how they feel. But here's the balance. You can't just suppress your feelings either. You've got to process them. That's where the journal comes in again. Write about what you're feeling and why you think you're feeling it. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Once you can see it, you can deal with it. You can ask yourself, is this feeling serving me? Is it based on truth or fear? What do I need to do about it? The real work of these 30 days is creating new patterns. You're not trying to become a different person. You're trying to become the person you were meant to be before the world convinced you to settle for less. You're clearing out the mental clutter, upgrading your inputs, and taking control of your internal state. This is the reconstruction phase. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's absolutely necessary. And when you get to the other side of it, everything changes. All the thinking in the world won't matter if you don't do something with it. All the reading, all the journaling, all the good intentions, none of it counts until it shows up in how you live. And this is where most people break down. They've got the knowledge, they've got the desire, but they don't have the discipline to translate what's happening inside into what's visible outside. The world doesn't pay you for what you know, it pays you for what you do with what you know. When I was starting out, I met a man who had less education than me, less natural talent than me, but he was making 10 times what I was making. I couldn't figure it out, so I watched him. I watched how he showed up to meetings 15 minutes early, always prepared, always sharp. I watched how he dressed, not expensive, but clean, pressed, intentional. I watched how he spoke, clearly, confidently, with respect for everyone in the room. And then it hit me. He wasn't smarter than me. He just showed up better than me. That was a hard pill to swallow because I had to admit I'd been showing up like someone who didn't take himself seriously. I was late more often than not. My appearance was sloppy. My preparation was minimal. And then I had the nerve to wonder why people weren't taking me seriously or giving me opportunities. The marketplace was simply responding to what I was presenting. So I made a decision. I decided that for the next 30 days, I was going to show up like someone who mattered, not because I felt like it, not because I had arrived, but because I understood that how you do anything is how you do everything. If you show up sloppy to a small meeting, you'll show up sloppy to a big opportunity. If you're late when it doesn't seem to matter, you'll be late when it does. Here's what that looked like practically. I started setting my clothes out the night before. I started showing up 20 minutes early to everything. I started reading my notes before meetings instead of winging it. I started speaking with intention instead of just filling silence. Small things. But those small things sent a signal to others and to myself that I was serious, that I was someone worth betting on. The way you show up is a form of communication. It tells people who you are before you say a word. Your appearance, your punctuality, your preparation, your energy, all of it is speaking. And most people are broadcasting a message they don't intend. They're broadcasting, I don't really care, I'm not that serious, I'm just getting by, and then they wonder why opportunities pass them by. Now, I'm not talking about being fake or putting on an act. I'm talking about bringing your best self to every situation. There's a word for this, sophistication. And sophistication isn't about being fancy or pretentious. It's about doing simple things extraordinarily well. It's about taking the ordinary and making it excellent through attention to detail and consistent effort. When you show up with sophistication, everything shifts. People treat you differently. Opportunities find you. Doors open. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you changed how you're presenting yourself to the world. You're sending a different signal, so you're getting a different response. For these 30 days, I want you to track something. Every single day, I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in 3 areas: preparation, presentation, and performance. Preparation, did you do the work beforehand? Did you think things through? Did you plan? Presentation, did you show up on time, looking appropriate, with the right energy? Performance, did you follow through? Did you do what you said you'd do? Did you give your best effort? Be honest with your scores. Don't lie to yourself. If you were a 6, write down 6. And here's what you'll notice, just the act of measuring changes your behavior. You'll start showing up better because you know you're going to have to score yourself at the end of the day. This is how you close the gap between who you are and who you're capable of being. I watched this work with a young man who attended one of my seminars. He was talented, bright, full of potential, but he was also unreliable. He'd commit to things and not follow through. He'd show up late with excuses. He had all the ability in the world and none of the discipline. I gave him this challenge: 30 days. Track your scores. No excuses. He resisted at first, said it seemed too simple. But I told him simple doesn't mean easy. 6 months later, he came back to another seminar. Different person. He'd been promoted twice. His income had tripled. His relationships had improved. I asked him what happened. He said, I realized I was lying to myself about how I was showing up. When I started tracking it, I couldn't hide anymore. I had to face the truth. And once I faced it, I could fix it. That's the power of measurement. What gets measured gets managed. And what gets managed gets improved. You can't upgrade what you won't acknowledge. Most people are walking around with blind spots the size of Texas, wondering why they're not getting ahead. They blame everything except the person in the mirror. Now, here's something else that happens when you start showing up differently. The people around you might not like it. Your old friends might make comments. Look at you, all dressed up. Who are you trying to impress? They'll try to pull you back down to their level because your growth makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them of their own lack of effort. This is normal. Expect it. Don't let it stop you. When you start upgrading yourself, you're going to experience resistance. Some of it will come from outside, but most of it will come from inside. Your own mind will try to talk you out of it. This is too much work. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to notice. That's the old version of you trying to survive. Don't listen. Keep showing up, keep tracking, keep improving. The beautiful thing about 30 days of consistency is that it creates evidence. Evidence you can't argue with. On day 1, you might score yourself a 5 in preparation, presentation, and performance. By day 30, if you're serious, you'll be scoring 7s and 8s, and you'll have proof. You'll have tracked data, you'll have results, you'll have people treating you differently because you're different. This is where transformation becomes real. This is where the internal work starts, producing external results. This is where your upgraded thinking and your controlled feelings translate into a life that actually looks different, feels different, and produces different outcomes. The world responds to what you do, not what you intend to do. And for the next 30 days, you're going to show the world and yourself what you're really capable of when you bring everything you've got to everything you do. So here we are. You've got the foundation. You've got the practical steps. You understand what needs to change and how to change it. But before we finish, we need to talk about something bigger, because 30 days isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning. And if you approach this like it's just a program you complete and then go back to normal, you've missed the entire point. What we're really talking about here is a fundamental shift in how you approach your life from this day forward. I've been at this for decades now. And I can tell you something with absolute certainty. Success isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a person you become. Most people spend their whole lives chasing outcomes. More money, better relationships, perfect health. And they think once they get there, they'll be happy. But here's what actually happens. They get what they want and realize they're still the same person with the same patterns, and the satisfaction lasts about 5 minutes before they're looking for the next thing. The real work isn't in achieving goals. The real work is in becoming someone who naturally attracts those outcomes because of who you are. That's what these 30 days are about. You're not trying to force yourself to be someone you're not. You're removing the layers of programming and conditioning that have been hiding who you really are. You're getting back to the person you were designed to be before fear, doubt, and other people's limitations convinced you to play small. When I was broke and struggling, I used to think rich people had some secret I didn't know, some special knowledge, some connection, some advantage. And then I started spending time with successful people, and I realized they didn't know anything magical. What they had was different standards, different disciplines, different ways of thinking and being that produced different results. And the moment I understood that, everything changed. Because if the difference was in who they were, not what they knew, that meant I could become that kind of person too. That's when I stopped seeing personal development as a task and started seeing it as a lifestyle. It wasn't something I did for 30 days or 90 days or a year. It became how I lived. Every single day, I was reading, learning, growing, improving. Not because I had to, but because I understood that life rewards the person who continually invests in becoming more. The marketplace doesn't care about your needs. It cares about your value. And your value is directly connected to who you're becoming. There are seasons in life, and we need to talk about that. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Each season has its purpose. Winter is hard. It's cold. It tests you. But winter is also where the strong get stronger. Spring is when you plant new seeds, new ideas, new habits. Summer is when things grow if you've done the work. And fall is harvest time. That's when you reap what you've sown. Most people want to skip winter and spring and go straight to harvest. Doesn't work that way. Never has. Never will. Right now, wherever you are in life, you're in a season. And the question isn't whether you like the season you're in. The question is, are you doing what this season requires? If you're in winter, are you getting stronger? If you're in spring, are you planting? If you're in summer, are you nurturing? If you're in fall, are you harvesting and preparing for the next winter? The seasons will change whether you work with them or not, but your results depend entirely on whether you do what each season demands. When I look back on my own transformation, I can see exactly when I was in winter, those early years when I was broke, when nothing was working, when I felt like giving up. That was winter. But winter is where I learned my most valuable lessons. Winter is where I developed the discipline that would carry me through every season after. If I had quit during winter, I would have missed everything that came after. These 30 days might be your winter. They might be hard. You might want to quit. But understand this, the degree of difficulty you're experiencing is usually proportional to the degree of growth that's available to you. Easy doesn't change you. Comfortable doesn't transform you. The struggle is where you become someone new. Here's what I want you to think about as you go through this process. What's your life going to look like in 5 years if nothing changes? If you keep thinking the same way, feeling the same way, showing up the same way, where does that road lead? Really think about it. Don't sugarcoat it. If you stay on the path you're on right now, what's waiting for you at the end? For most people, that's a sobering question. But it's necessary, because you can't change direction until you're honest about where you're headed. Now, think about this. What becomes possible if you actually do upgrade the way you think, feel, and show up? What doors open? What opportunities appear? What person do you become? That version of you, the one who's disciplined, focused, intentional, what can that person create? The gap between those two futures is entirely in your hands. Nobody else can close it for you. This brings me to something that matters more than people realize. You don't just owe this to yourself. You owe it to everyone who's counting on you. Your family, your kids if you have them, the people who look up to you, the people who need what only you can provide. When you settle for less than you're capable of, you're not just robbing yourself, you're robbing everyone who could benefit from the best version of you. I think about the legacy I'm leaving. Not just money or achievements, but the example. What are people learning from watching how I live? What am I passing down through my actions, my choices, my daily disciplines? That's what matters in the end. Not what you said you believed, what you actually demonstrated with your life. Your kids don't need your advice as much as they need your example. The world doesn't need your opinions as much as it needs your contribution. So here's my challenge to you for these next 30 days. Commit completely. Not halfway. Not when it's convenient. Completely. Give it everything you've got. Track your progress. Be honest with yourself. Face the uncomfortable truths. Do the work even when you don't feel like it. Show up even when nobody's watching. Because here's what I've learned after all these years. Life doesn't give you what you need. Life gives you what you deserve based on the person you've become and the value you bring. If you do these 30 days right, you won't just have better results. You'll have evidence that you're capable of far more than you've been settling for. You'll have proof that you can change. And that proof will give you the confidence to keep going, to set bigger goals, to become even more. 30 days is just the beginning. But it's the beginning that changes everything. The question is, are you ready to start? So there it is. Everything you need is right in front of you. The blueprint is clear. The path is laid out. The only thing missing is your decision. Not tomorrow, not when things settle down, not when you feel ready. Right now, today, this moment. 30 days from now, you'll arrive. The question is, who will you be when you get there? Will you be the same person with the same struggles, or will you be someone who proved to themselves that change is possible? Someone who took control, someone who stopped making excuses and started making progress. The truth is, you already know what you need to do. You've always known. The information isn't the issue. The issue is the decision. And that decision has to be made right now with everything you've got. Because life isn't going to wait for you to feel ready. Life is happening right now, and it's responding to who you are right now. These next 30 days will pass whether you do something with them or not. Make them count. Upgrade how you think. Take control of how you feel. Show up like someone who matters. Do that, and everything changes. Everything. Now go to work.